So I'm getting away from the heat and I'm riding my mountain bike out here in the Spring Mountains just west of the city of Las Vegas. It's about 25 to 30 degrees cooler up here, so I actually get to enjoy the trails. But while I'm doing that, I thought we'd talk about the Canon announcement of an event on the 17th of July, a little less than a week away. They posted a sneak peek video on their various social media feeds, and it's nothing. Like, it doesn't actually give us any real details other than the date and the time. And speaking of dates, I have to call myself out for the fact that I had said repeatedly, and I had heard repeatedly, that we were going to be getting the R5 Mark II announcement and the development announcement for the R1 in the middle of May. That pretty much came to be true for the R1, but when it came to the R5, obviously it's been crickets for weeks. I don't really know what that was about. I don't know if they changed their plans or they saw a lot of the activity on social media and decided that they were going to push it, or maybe from a development standpoint, they weren't going to be ready to get it out at the time frame that they had originally intended. So I got that one wrong and I apologize. But one thing that we didn't get wrong was the announcement for the development of the R1, and we actually expect to see a full announcement of the R1 at this event. And we haven't seen a lot more from the R1. No one in the kind of retail or distribution chains have seen it yet. It's just in the hands of those Canon ambassadors, but we are still expecting late 2024 commercial availability, and we should see it at the Summer Olympics in Paris. One quick new bit of information that we've seen that may or may not be coming to fruition on the R1 as they talk about this new sensor technology is whether or not we'll be getting a dual gain sensor out of Canon. If you watched the announcement for the C400 and you saw that it had multiple ISO levels, think about it from that standpoint, that the pixels inside the sensor would be able to effectively capture light and how much light they can capture, how much power is put through that sensor can determine its sensitivity. And if you push different amounts of power, you get different levels of sensitivity. A dual gain sensor effectively pushes two different amplitudes, two different amounts of power, of gain, into the chip, into the sensor. But you can't do that at the same time. It's got to be kind of on and off, on and off, on and off. And so while this has been something that we've seen in video-focused products, it's not something that we've seen in a stills shooter. And the R1 is definitely a still shooter with its 30 megapixel sensor, its 40 and 60 frame per second burst. I will link to my specs video. That information really hasn't changed. We might be getting this dual gain sensor. Very interested to see if that ends up being the case. And we will be getting dual CF Express Type B slots on that camera. All right, now moving on to the R5 Mark II, where we have seen it in the distribution chain. Retailers have seen it and are getting briefed on it in advance of this June or July 17th announcement. A couple of the specs that we saw before have held up, but now we're getting additional details. Still looking at a 45 megapixel stacked BSI sensor, but the number that we're getting out of Canon looks to be 16 stops of dynamic range. Obviously, your mileage may vary, but that is what Canon will likely be marketing this product as having. In addition, they're expecting improved pixel shift, likely coming from an advancement or improvement in the IBIS system built into the camera. Still looking at 12 frames per second mechanical, 30 frames per second electronic. And with the electronic shutter, there is still that 1/16,000th of a second potential shutter speed. As well as now we're hearing zero blackout shooting. Improved autofocus, obviously, and the AI-driven autofocus with those kind of neural net-based predictive tracking algorithms for different types of movement to be able to track items in a crowd. One question we had was whether or not it would be getting the IAF control out of the R3. That is pretty much confirmed now. We will be seeing IAF, along with a new designed EVF, which makes sense considering that advancement. I mentioned earlier with the pixel shift, we're likely going to be getting an improvement in the IBIS. Right now in the R5 and the R6, it is a 5.5 stop improvement, with up to 8 stops when you pair it with an RF lens with IS. And we will definitely be seeing cooling vents for passive cooling inside the camera. There will be 2 of them, and they will actually adapt to or connect to the purported cooling grip that will have active cooling. So you'll have passive cooling on the camera by itself, and if you add the grip, you will add active cooling, which will then use those vents to, I'm assuming, push and or pull air from the internal, the body of the camera. Video shooting up to 8K at 60p, although we are hearing now that the 60p may have some limited functionality. We're not sure what that would be, maybe limited AI autofocus, as well as 12-bit Canon RAW light. Still coming with CF Express B and SD UHS-2 slots. Some buttons are rumored to be illuminated, which would be fun. And one of the most exciting things that we're seeing is that it will have a full-size HDMI port. Finally. It'll also be shipping with USB 4 and potentially improved battery performance. And even though we expect it to be announced on the 17th of July, it will likely be shipping in August, although retailers have yet to be told exactly when in August. And pricing, as I reported before, probably $39.99, just under $4,000. Also, just to note, Canon is likely going to announce, maybe not at this announcement, maybe just as a press release, they're going to be announcing their own hardware for a card reader that will be USB 4, as well as a wireless microphone strategy similar to what Sony has, which makes sense considering the fact that the improved hot shoe on more modern Canon cameras can support audio pass-through. So it makes perfect sense to be able to kind of capture part of that market that DJI and Rode and others they're getting that money. If Canon can go get it and have a Canon branded product that just adapts well, why not capture that part of the market? So that's it for the announcement that is going to be happening on the 17th. I will be reporting either live or just after the event on what's going to be going on. And yeah, I'm going to get back to my ride. If this is the type of thing that you're into, go ahead and hit like and subscribe, hit the bell so that you're notified when I make new videos. These clouds aren't showing up, so I think I'm in for a hot ride home. All right, I'll see you in the next one.